Okay, our lesson today is going to begin on 5.5a, the law of sines. Now, the law of sines is derived from something that you learned in geometry and also in pre-calculus, where we talked about how we use trig ratios, sine, cosine, tangent, to help us to find missing sides and angles of right triangles. Well, throughout history, mathematicians were able to use the law, or I'm sorry, use sine, cosine, tangent, these trig ratios to help you find missing sides and angles to non-right triangles. Also in geometry, remember we saw proofs where you had two triangles are congruent by angle, angle, side, or we had angle, side, angle, and things like that. Well, they kind of use this to help us derive these laws. So what we're going to do is we're going to break this up into different parts. And today what we're going to do is we're going to try to find a missing side of a non-right triangle using what we call law of sines. Now this is going to be fairly simple, especially when we start comparing it to the law of cosines, which we'll do a little later. Okay, what is the law of sines? The law of sines states that if we take any non-right triangle, we can proportionally set the angle, the sine of the angle to the side that's opposite is equal to the sine of another angle and to its opposite. So what you're going to do is you're going to set up a proportion relationship either with A and B, or B and C, or A and C. Now, it doesn't really matter which is A, which is B, which is C, but this is just a demonstration of how the proportions work. So the sine of A, of course, would come from the A, the angle, and to its opposite. And sine of B to its opposite side, and sine of C to its opposite side. Alright, watch how this is worked. This is not that bad at all. So here is example number 1. We want to solve using two angles and a side. So in this our first lesson, I'm going to give you two angles, a side, and you need to find a missing side. So we want to find the value of x. So we're going to use the law of sines, and this is how we do it. Notice in our formula we have the sine of the angle over a side that's opposite to it. So let's do that here. Let's find, and actually I like to use the one that has the variable first. So we have the sine of 48 degrees over, look at its opposite, the opposite side is x. So sine 48 over x is equal to the proportion of the sine of 36 degrees over 8. So sine angle over its opposite side equals sine angle over its opposite side. Now here's where the tricky part comes in. We're going to have to do a proportion. Now when we do a proportion, it's easy to set up, but since a lot of you might not have a scientific calculator, we're going to have to use our cell phone. So I'm going to show you how to use your cell phone calculator in order to solve this with no problem. Alright, so I have x times sine 36. X times sine 36 equals to 8 times sine 48. Alright, now we got to figure out how you're going to put this in your calculator. So everybody, if you open up your cell phones, you'll notice that most of you, when you have your cell or your calculator, it looks something like this. But if you turn it sideways, it becomes a scientific calculator. So we've got to figure out how we're going to put this into our calculator. Alright, so over here I have 8 sine 48. But these are different than the scientific calculators or the TI-84s. So we're going to have to kind of do things backwards. So you need to put in 48 first. So let me do this. First, second, third. So 48 sine. Then you notice there's a times here, so we're going to hit times 8. Times 8 equals. Alright, so you get this long decimal number, 5.945 and whatever. Leave it alone. Just keep it in your calculator because you don't want to have to sit here and think about, rounding or whatever. Just keep it like it is. And what we're going to do now, since this is over here on the other side and we need to solve for x, we need to divide by sine 36. So this would actually be divide fourth, and then fifth you'd put in 36, and then sixth you would put in sine. So let's put in divide by 36 sine equals, and there's your answer, 10.1. Now you can round it. So the length of x is 10.1. Now it's pretty obvious I did not draw this to scale because 10.1 is bigger than 8 and it looks like this line is longer. But remember, the bigger the angle, the longer the opposite side. The smaller the angle, the shorter the opposite side. So disregard that I did not draw that one to scale very well. Alright, let's do another one so you have another example and then I'll give you your assignment. Okay, let's try this one. Okay, we want to solve for x. Alright, notice I have my two angles on the side and I'm looking for a missing side. So what I want to do is take this angle, sine of that angle is over its opposite side, which is x, is equal to this angle, sine of 70, over its opposite side, 10. Now let's cross multiply. I have x sine 70. Always do the one with the variable first because it makes it a little easier when you're looking at it and putting your calculator. Equals to 10 times sine 60. Alright, so we know this is going to be divided by sine 70 over here. And we want to do this, of course, first, second, third, fourth, you're going to divide, fifth, sixth. Do that in your calculator on your phone and you'll get the correct answer every time. Alright, so let's bring this up. We have 60 sine times 10 equals, so I get this 8.66 number, then divided by 70 sine equals 9.2. So the value of x is 9.2. Now this one makes a little bit more sense. You can tell this line's a little bit longer than that one. And notice we got 70 degrees, this is 10, this is 60 degrees, so that would be 9.2. It's a very reasonable number. If you follow everything step by step the way I showed you, you should have no trouble whatsoever with this assignment.